I think when people travel, they like to be in an exclusive space by themselves. Not the way people want to travel anymore. They want to be by themselves in an enclosed unit and the privacy of essentially their own home. But I also think when you rent out your own room in a house, you are subject to so much liability that I think hosts don't really realize. So if you look at Airbnb's host protection policy, they essentially won't cover jewelry, art, cash, collectibles, that sort of stuff. So you put yourself in your own risk there. But I also think what hosts don't think about is what happens if your guest gets drunk and comes home and they're very rowdy, or what happens about things like sexual assault, domestic abuse. How do you solve those, right? And that I think is such a crucial part of hosting, that when you rent out a room, you should really be aware of. And I think the average host maybe doesn't fully think about that side. I get there's a need for the room-based business. I get that there's an affordable option for that for sure. But I just find there's so much security and risk that happens when you walk into someone else's home, right? And then even if you think about the cleaning process of who's cleaning the kitchen, is the guest responsible for that? Is the homeowner? What happens with bathroom sharing? I've seen hosts put, I remember when I traveled to Toronto, there was my first time using Airbnb. I rented this place and it was dirt cheap, and I rented it only for the reason it was dirt cheap. But it was a den. It had no window in it. It wasn't even into regulations, right? Like, there was a fire, by no means were you able to escape from this place. But I remember when I was looking, there was someone who was renting a room in their property, and they had restrictions where you weren't allowed to shower between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. Probably that's because that's when they would shower to go to work. And then you also weren't allowed to use the kitchen from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And I just think that opens a can of worms for conflict and discussion when you put so many restrictions on how someone's supposed to live in your own home. I mean, we've had ones where the TV's been stolen, and luckily Airbnb's helped us with compensation for that and getting that person off the platform. But think about if you have to physically address to that person who's stealing your TV from the home. I also think there's a part that when it's your own home, you're so emotionally invested into that property that every little thing that someone does, even if it's just a cultural norm and it might be different in different cities or different countries, I think there's so much conflict that can come from renting your own home.